open drug use, unsettling encounters, and the stench of human waste. Edmonton LRT riders say this is just part of the commute.
And that also depends on the time of day. It gets pretty dicey.
George Schlagheck agrees. He takes the train from Stadium Station to Nate.
It's unacceptable, period.
Twice now, he has documented his LRT rides. This is video from his latest trip, where he immediately stumbled upon drug use and later a possible overdose. He says his experience has soured him on public transit. It used to be his first choice, but not anymore.
With the LRT being as it is, a lot of times we decide, let's not bother with this.
It was scary.
14-year-old Kara has her own story, one that makes her hesitant to show her face. She and her friends were pepper sprayed after an altercation at Central Station. The teen says they called the police because the hired security guards on duty did not immediately take action.
They didn't really do anything, and it didn't really feel that safe.
Their job isn't to intervene, it's to observe and report. That's according to the local transit union. But for many riders, that's beside the point. They feel unsafe and they want help. So far this year, Edmonton police have recorded 549 LRT and transit center disturbances, which include 130 violent incidents and 42 weapons complaints. The city says calls for medical aid have increased by more than 800% since 2017. In 2021, peace officers went to nearly 1,500 medical calls on transit property and about 8,000 welfare checks. Former city councillor Michael Walters rides regularly to Enterprise Square. He says the LRT has become a catch-all for social issues. That's the problem.
Transit needs to get you to where you need to go, and you need to be safe and comfortable while you're en route.
He says transit safety concerns aren't new, but the pandemic is, and issues like homelessness and toxic street drugs are worse. Global News spoke with a man who is staying in a downtown shelter. He knows many people who seek refuge in the LRT. He and those in his group say LRT stations have become makeshift supervised consumption sites because of the high visibility area. If someone overdoses, the group says they know they'll get help more quickly.
I mean, they do drugs, but where are you going to go and take your drugs and all this? You got to stay warm.
But he also agrees with the riders. The status quo needs to change.
It's actually quite bad. It's covered with blood stains, and the smell of drugs is bad enough.
Riders say this system isn't working for anyone.
Something's got to be done about it. Otherwise, there's no point in having an LRT.
A family-friendly neighborhood close to a transit center. Ashley Whidden says it was a dream find in South Edmonton. Then,
we've really discovered the ugly side of that convenience.
That means playtime in the backyard, interrupted by an intoxicated stranger, or watching an arrest just steps past the swing set. The community Facebook group is peppered with news of thefts, break-ins, and suspected arson. 7 years after moving in, Whidden wonders, is this still her dream?
We're really having conversations about whether or not we need to move to a new community.
Edmonton Police Service is tracking community crime, in March releasing a digital map. Along the city's LRT line, there's a higher number of incidents, including assault, theft, and weapons complaints. Though EPS declined to comment on map trends, neighbors in Malmo Plains say they've experienced the spillover firsthand.
This uptick in crimes, if memory serves correctly, actually increased when the overpass was installed.
Mohammed El-Azabi sits on the Malmo Plains Community League. He says there are talks to close off the fence that links neighbors to transit. He admits it's not ideal.
It would be inconvenient for us users of the LRT, but the safety of the neighborhood comes first.
Councillor Tim Cartmel has looked at the crime map too, and he's worried.
The potential for greater crime in residential areas that is being supported by this essentially free conduit of travel that takes people from the core out to the extensions of the city.
We really do need more and better enforcement on the LRT.
The transit union president says safety and how to improve it is on his mind too. He doesn't believe hired guards' presence works as a deterrent for crime. Steve Bradshaw says he wants peace officers to have more authority.
They're very limited in what they can enforce. They should at least be able to enforce the Mental Health Act. That would help us take real problem, people with real difficulties off the system and get them the help they need.
Bradshaw says crime in the station and surrounding area makes it hard to attract riders back to transit now that they're returning to the office.
The city is very, very seriously working on this problem, and we're working on it with them. But things don't change overnight. It's a very complicated problem.
Soon, the LRT will expand and connect more corners of the city. Whidden hopes her kids will reap the rewards of the system instead of shy away from it.
We believe in public transportation. We want to support the system, and we want to have our children be a part of that. But if it's not safe for them, then I don't see it being an option.
An urgent call from LRT riders for help. A call that's louder after an unprovoked attack on an Edmonton senior who was pushed onto the tracks Monday. Her brother, Ram Medallier, has a message.
All I want to say to the City Council is, please help the people who are using the transit.
The city is adding more peace officers, opioid response teams, and a security dispatcher. There are pushes to bring back the loitering bylaw and build fare gates. Councillor Tim Cartmell says it's all worth a look, but
the problem with that is that sometimes those modest infractions are used by those in authority to persecute or over-prosecute.
Mayor Amarjeet Sohi says even if those changes were made, they're Band-Aid solutions to much bigger problems. He says it all ties back to housing, drugs, and mental health issues, all of which are not Edmonton's responsibility.
Unfortunately, province has not stepped up to provide us necessary support, but we will continue to implore upon them to do what they need to do.
In a statement, the province points to earlier funding, including a top-up to offset low ridership during the pandemic. It tells Global News public safety is a responsibility of the city, and it should be funded appropriately by the mayor and council. Former city councillor Michael Walters says council needs a new approach. This one tries to be everything to everyone, and that rarely works.
What I see these days is what I would call an over-conflation of trying to make transit safer and trying to solve the long-term root causes of poverty, mental health, and addiction.
Global News asked Councillor Cartmell if he believes council is afraid to make a harsh or unpopular move. His response?
I do, but I also, from my understanding, watching other cities that have kind of gone through this situation, and there's a lot of them, there has been an emphasis on finding root causes.
Vancouver Transit Police say despite a small uptick in disturbances, generally things are safe on its system, and it's rare for riders to encounter trouble. Constable Amanda Steed says the most frequent calls attended to are mental health and substance use.
If there's something going on, there's always somebody to tell.
Back in Edmonton, Staff Sergeant Mike Zapernuk is in charge of the ETS Crime Reduction Safety Project. His team is working on a report for the city to explore long-term safety strategies. That'll be finished in the summer. Till then, he says people report some improvements.
They are noticing more police presence and more Edmonton peace officers at these transit locations, which is helping them feel a lot safer.
The Bear Clan Patrol, led by Judith Gale, works with vulnerable people. She says they want to feel safer too. She thinks a section of the LRT tunnel system should be open to people seeking shelter instead of letting them spread throughout the entire LRT.
We need to ensure that they're going to be safe and together and come out alive on the other end.
The discussion takes on added significance considering an LRT expansion is coming, worth billions. And Cartmell believes it will be popular, but right now, he calls it scary.
I think what we've lost along the way is a safety-first approach as well.
So, while the city points at a variety of possible causes and solutions, many of the riders, like Medallier, say whatever is decided needs to focus on safety first.
Yes, I do feel let down by the city.
Morgan Black, Global News.